Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. Rostermania chaos has continued over the last couple of days, and Shotzzy's given his perspective on the Neptune situation. It's been a big question mark. Why has one of the best players of the season in Neptune not been picked up straight away to one of the top teams in the Call of Duty League? Surprisingly enough, despite being the best on Surge, you might well argue, he's been one of the last on Surge, we think, to really get these conversations. Is it true what Parasite revealed the other day, that because he was trying to sketch on his team before the World Cup had even ended, that's affected things? Or is it more likely and more probable that there's something else going on? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Gonna start with the Breaking Point Awards. If you guys watched the show last night, either on our channel or on Zoomer's channel, we had a good time breaking everything down from the season and reliving many of the moments. Understandably, there were some controversial ones. The way that it was voted by community members for the actual regular voting and fan vote was included in that as well to some extent. But also there were some awards which were purely fan voted. And of course, these were also controversial. OpTic versus Heretics at Control. They won Map of the Year. There was some talk about that. These are all the winners though, just if you guys didn't see yesterday's show, just to break it down. Scrap won Hardpoint Player of the Year. Search and Destroy Player of the Year went to Super. Now, there was a bit of drama about this, actually, because TJ was in the replies, surprised that he wasn't on the list, and I do get that. Now, should Super have won it? It's a question. I think, you know, I think I gave it to Super, but I think I had Shotzzy right there or thereabouts in my rankings. Snoopy was also not too far away. It was nice to see him get, you know, some respect here. I think I had TJ there in my top 5, 4th or 5th, but there were tons of players that got votes. So in the end, TJ didn't make the list. He did actually, yeah, he was voted 6 times, TJ. So he was an honourable mention, as you guys can probably not see because it's going to be no pixels. But he was an honourable mention, TJ. But he didn't make the top 8 in terms of the voting results, which was pretty surprising. And Super, I think you could argue deserved it, but on LAN he wasn't quite as good as he was online. So there's some debate on that. But I think when you think of like Search and Destroy this season, you generally think of Super, so I understand why he got the award in the end after all the nominations came through. Scrap then won Control Player of the Year. He kind of did clean house, really. The Flank won Social Team of the Year. I was talking about Control, but there was no intel in there. Like, it was just a theory that maybe Control could be changed next year. Huke won Comeback Player. I think this could have gone to Neptune. I know that some would argue it should have done. But I think Huke was a very reasonable winner and, you know, let's say, very much deserving winner of this award. Objective Player of the Year went to Ghosty, because all he did was sit in the hill this year. And he did a great job of it, really. Like, I do think there's a bit of recency bias involved in the play of both Envoy and Ghosty, but also understandable why they're deciding to move on. Scrap won AR Player of the Year. HyDra won SMG Player of the Year. This was actually very competitive with Shotzzy, and I think for good reason. Huke actually was down in 6th. Pretty interesting, because I think I had Huke higher than this. I definitely had Huke higher than this, but it's interesting to see how that's worked out, because over the entire season, was Huke better than Shotzzy? You know, I would say for a large part of it, probably yes. When it mattered at the end of the season, Shotzzy leveled up. You know, it's always interesting, these things, but Huke didn't get a single #1 place vote, which I thought was kind of interesting, because Simp did, and so did Neptune. So anyway, HyDra wins it in the end. Player of the Year went to Mercules with his 1v3. There was another couple of ones. I probably would have given it to HyDra's like 4-piece or 5-piece that he got on Hacienda, but this is also a really important player at a crucial time. We talked about Map of the Year winner. OpTic won Coaching Staff of the Year. We'll get to some of the reaction to that in a second. Scrap won MVP. This was debatable again. Some gave it to Shotzzy, some would have given it to Mercules, but you know, Scrap won it honestly relatively uncontested in the voting, which I think is probably justified over the course of the year. And then Mercules was Rookie of the Year. It was a 2-horse race really with him and Rencor, but I gave it to Mercules. I think that was probably the right answer. People were wondering who the one vote for King of Body was in 5th. I'll put my hands up for that. So anyway, so, you know, shout out King of Body and the boys. Shout out Riley Fadder as well. He won the Unsung Hero of the Year. So anyway, we came up with these new awards for the season. Dashy won Clutch Player of the Year. Neptune and Embo's, they shared, well, it was Embo's moment really, wasn't it? But it was also Neptune's, the streaming moment of the year. So yeah, anyway, those are your winners. So congratulations to everyone if you guys didn't see last night's show. There was a bit of drama because people were debating coaching staff, who should have won. Should it have been Karma and JP? And COD Discussion says, meanwhile, Rambo, with the worst roster, made 5 grand finals, were consistent the whole year. And obviously, the fan voting stuff is always going to raise questions. We are open to feedback, let's say, on how much we consider fan voting in these things going forwards, because, you know, maybe it does skew the results of some things. But personally, I think this is fair. Like, I would have voted Karma and JP as coaching staff of the year, personally. And, well, Karma was saying a whole lot of grumpy people on the Bluebird today. Don't lose sleep over BP awards, you'll be okay. So, anyway, here were the boys last night. Thought that was all rather funny, really. And, yeah, as I say, shout out Riley and all the other absolute legends who do the work behind the camera in this scene that do not get the gratitude that they deserve. Let's move on to some roster stuff, because we're going to start... Well, actually, before we do that, I wanted to start here. OpTic Legacy Week. So... we're back, baby, and this is going to be sensational. I cannot wait for Friday. I will be there. So, anyway, if you guys aren't familiar with this, it's like OpTic Week. This time it's OpTic Day, of course, on a Thursday. Team Kremp versus Team Karma on BO2, and they've got some serious stuff planned. So today, Advanced Warfare, Scump versus Formal, BO4's getting played, Halo 3's getting played, and then on the Friday... you couldn't make it. I'm getting the popcorn in for this one. We're getting takeaway Friday night for sure to turn on the stream here. We've got a BO3 legacy match with the Dynasty versus the current roster. That is going to be generational. So that's what's happening this week. But a few roster things. This was actually very spicy to me from Kenny. So Kenny came out on stream and says that there's a load of young players in the league who they say that they try and win, but they don't really. They really just play and keep their spot. Now, one thing that's worthy to note here, right, is that he says, I don't mind teaming with young players, but that's generally their attitude. How many young players does Kenny team with? You think about it, especially in recent times, not all that many. So who do we think he's referring to? Think about it for 2 seconds. Oh yeah, probably his rocket team that he just left, right? So that's my read on it anyway, is that some of what Kenny is saying here is directed to Geo, to Nero, and of course to Estriel, who he recently played with on the G2 roster, and it seems like Kenny's now getting a pretty big upgrade going into next season. But he does say that players playing to, keep their spot rather than to win is an issue. But I understand that Beans quote tweets this and says that, really, you've got to see both sides of it, because Hixie, for example, now, might argue that Hixie's not the best example here, but I think it's a reasonable one anyway. Hixie joined the league, he won his first event that he went to with Toronto, and yeah, he was on a good team, he came into a good situation, and he nearly became a world champion, a couple of events later. But I think it was a pretty big injustice that Hixie was then not signed next year. Despite all that success and everything, he was then snubbed for a CDL spot next year. And look, you can look at the CDL teams and you can understand why they didn't do it, given the situation, but I think that's the point that Beans is making, is look, Hixie came in, he did the job, he did exactly what was necessary as a player and fit into that role to help the team to win. And they did achieve success and win. But then he wasn't rewarded for that, which is, understandable. But if Hixie had come in, he'd played a little bit different. He dropped better numbers, which he could have done. Talented player. He could have dropped better numbers and looked like a player on a decent team. Let's say that Toronto team in MW2, instead of making finals and winning events, they were top 3, top 4, but Hixie looked better individually. Would he have been more likely to get picked up next year than not? Maybe he was more likely he gets picked up in that scenario. So that's where things are complicated. As Bean says, the ecosystem rewards the lineman cards rather than winning. And it's interesting because a player like Nero, for example, who Kenny might be kind of talking about in the clip, Nero, we know, has a high ceiling. He's a talented player. He's cracked, right? You watch his PFE. What's he really achieved in the years that he's been in the league? Not much, but I still think you think about Nero and you think, okay, solid, talented SMG player, maybe he could be part of a team that does some good things. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that there's a discrepancy there, right, between players that they pass the eye test, as it were, and they pass the lineman card test, but, maybe not much else. So Kenny says, look, to this day, I'll never understand that, and to be fair, I did change my statement to you may stay in the league playing to keep your spot, but you'll never make more money or win, which I think that's the crux of it, really, isn't it? Would you prefer to be Hixie, or would you prefer to be Nero, I guess? It's an interesting one, because Hixie's won. He's been a champion. He played for the win and he got the right circumstance and he won as a result. Another player may have more years in the league but might not win. So, what matters at the end of the day? Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Bean says, statistically, 90% of players are not going to win, so the money they make will be salary and mid-table placement money until they got to do what they got to do to keep making that sweet moolah. So, and Kenny drops the thumbs up, maybe kind of saying that you're one of those players, buddy. I don't know if that's actually what he means, but actually the guy that replies further down says the same thing. So, yeah, true to your thoughts on that in the comments. But let's talk about a couple of spicy clips as well here from Shotzzy. This one was actually hilarious here from a scrim they played against FaZe on the Skyline when Mercules had a few words and then he smoked aBeZy and then falls off the map. Was funny, but he was talking a lot actually potentially about this FaZe team with regard to Neptune. So this year Neptune was one of the best players in the league, certainly one of the best SMGs that we had. was right up there, had a phenomenal season. It was so impactful. I mean, nobody's going to deny Neptune's impact because he came into that team for HyDra and they went from not being very good to making 5 finals out of like 6 tournaments that Neptune played. So pretty wild, and Neptune's impact there is undeniable. Now, FaZe have gone for, we think, 04 and Abuzah. As a recording, that's what we believe is going to be their team, with Drazah and Simp rounding out the roster. But Shotzzy says he's very, very surprised that Neptune was not the first consideration. And I think it's been a surprise to many of us, really, because, you know, you would have thought, given that the Surge team was, you know, maybe unanimously Neptune was their best player. I think people would probably argue that. I think 04 is also very good and highly rated by the players for, I think, a good reason. The same applies for Abuzah and also for Nastie. But in the case of Neptune, he was the standout of that team. So you might have thought that a team like FaZe or whoever that was considering some of the guys from Surge would have put Neptune ahead of some of their other options. Look, I think the Simp 04 duo could be pretty impactful. It could be a kind of like HyDra Kismet type situation where, you know, HyDra can just be the do-it-all, like that's what Simp will do, and then Kismet will do whatever it takes around that. That's not exactly what Simp and Neptune would be, but Neptune would potentially be a more like-for-like replacement with somebody like an aBeZy, which we know they've had good success with before. So Shotzzy says that he's just not really sure, because in his opinion, Neptune is just better than anybody else that's been in these conversations so far.
Honestly, the thing is, I don't mind young players. I don't mind seeing young players. The thing about young players, though, is that like the question above is like they play more for to keep their spot than try to win. And I just feel like, to me, that doesn't doesn't give me like the satisfaction that they came to the league to want to win. People, if you ask any pro player in the league and they're gonna say, and you ask them like, yo, do you want to win? Guess what they're gonna say? Yeah, I want to win. My response is act like it. And granted, you can't act like it if you never won. So then when you get around people that win or have won, they have some kind of credibility, in my opinion.
Is that time? Could mean that I got turned on bad. I swear to God, I got turned on bad. No, I'm telling. Is that time? Could mean that I got turned on bad. I swear to God, I got turned on bad.
Another one, Jim, aBeZy.
You want that, we're good. We've been the sum.
Yeah. I'm gonna go right side. I'm gonna do a little bit. Okay, I blocked aBeZy in the back. Shit on.
You better.
I'm gonna do a little bit. Okay, I blocked aBeZy in the back. Shit on.
Better.
What the fuck? Okay, I blocked aBeZy in the back. Shit on.
You better. Better, really fucking weak.
In the back, Drazah, one shot in the back, one shot in the back. He's absolutely feeling jump.
I think the most polite way for me to say is just there are other SMG options in front of him, and he just got to be patient. Like, he's still going to get, I think, likely get on to either Toronto or LAG. Like, it's still going to work out for him, but he's not. Yeah. He's not getting into the like OpTic.
Yo, but I swear, like, he's better than all of them, dude. Am I tripping? Am I like, bro? Yeah. Did no one, bro? First of all, I played against this guy, so like, I feel like it sounds insane. Like, it sounds like some ego shit, but like, I feel like what I think probably matters the most between anyone, other than obviously players and shit. But I'm telling you, bro, the way he plays this game, and I'm pretty sure the next game is gonna be somewhat similar. Like, he played Black Ops 6 really fucking good. Like, no kill whore, nothing. Like, he was super impactful.
That was gross. Great search too. But
so why is Neptune not getting that shout? Is it because he was trying to talk to other players and other teams before the World Cup was over? I don't really buy that idea. I think there's a possibility that people look at Neptune, because also Shotzzy implied it there, and it's like, well, Neptune's had a couple of stints. He was in the league in Cold War on Florida. He was in the league in Vanguard on New York. And then he came back in the league on Los Angeles Guerrillas or whatever it was for a little bit of time. So there have been stints that haven't been quite as strong for him. Maybe there's a feeling that this year was a one-off or something from some of the teams and players, but I don't really buy that idea. I think Neptune's improved, and also, as Shotzzy says, it's not like next year's game is probably, or this year's coming game, is going to be dramatically different, we think, to what Black Ops 7 has just been played or Black Ops 6 has just been played for the entire year. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of that stuff in the comments section below. Just a couple of final funny things to mention for you guys. Obviously, Bo's won the Streaming Moment of the Year award, and that was not the only funny moment that Bo's had on the season. So an entertaining off-season, I'm sure, to come ahead of us, and then Black Ops 7 arriving. I think the beta must be out relatively soon as well. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Why are you so against it?
I told you I set my prices, bro. Everybody's
What's
gonna
your
eat off
price?
the content. I'm gonna make less than I want. It's 10 racks.
But Ben, you could make why you're gonna stream it too, and also get stream and subs.
See, this is the bullshit I didn't want to fall in with this. This is why I don't like this, bro. The problem with that content is everybody else is going to stream me watching it, okay, and they are going to take all of the viewers. So that's why I want to make money up front. If everybody else is going to react off this content, I want to eat off too, bro. I'm not going to sit here and just get fucked and be free entertainment for people.